Even at Graceland, he would be dressed up, coming down the staircase. No pajamas.
Priscilla Presley. After meeting the king of rock and roll at just 14 years old, her life was never the same. Despite the divorce and his passing so long ago, she has kept his legacy alive and still regards him as the love of her life. From taking care of the king to creating an empire around him, Priscilla has been doing it all. Was Elvis truly the love of her life, or will the new wave of Elvis fans be too much to handle? Let's find out. Priscilla Presley was born on May 24th, 1945 in Brooklyn, New York. Due to her father's career as a U.S. Air Force Marshal, Priscilla and her family moved around a lot from base to base, which she said made her feel uneasy. Making friends and fitting in was hard for Priscilla, so when she got the news that her stepfather was transferred to West Germany, she was crushed because she would once again have to start over, leaving her junior high friends behind. Her family moved to Germany, and in 1959, it just so happened that superstar Elvis Presley was also stationed there. The two met at a party when Priscilla was just 14 and Elvis was 24. The age gap and his status sparked concern for her parents, but Elvis saw it as an opportunity to mold Priscilla into his ideal woman. He said to his friend Rex Mansfield that she was, quote, young enough that I can train her any way I want. After 4 dates together, he won Priscilla's parents over through an official meeting with her father. He was sporting his army uniform and told her father that he happens to be very fond of Priscilla and she's a lot more mature than her age. His charm worked because after this, he was her entire world. Priscilla stated that he would call the house after 7 and tell her he'd pick her up at 8, so she remembers scrambling around her house to get ready, looking for something to make herself look older, often wearing her mother's clothes. When Elvis was discharged from the army in 1960, he returned to the United States. With Priscilla still in Germany attending school, she was sure that the relationship would end. However, she continued to keep in touch by writing him letters and talking on the phone. Priscilla would put her letters to Elvis in hot pink envelopes so that hers would stand out from the fan mail. She continued to attend school, though her grades began slipping. After 2 years of long-distance communication, they were finally reunited in the summer of 1962 when they convinced Priscilla's parents to let her visit for 2 weeks. They only allowed the pair to be reunited if he paid for her to have a first-class round-trip flight, a chaperone at all times, and if she would write home every day. When she flew to LA, he told her that they were going to Vegas and instructed her to write a letter for every day they were gone so a staff member could send them to her parents from LA. She made another visit to Elvis during Christmas 1962, and in March of 1963, just before turning 18, her parents allowed her to move to Memphis for good. They had the rules, of course. She would attend an all-girls Catholic high school because, yes, she was still in high school at this time, and she would live with Elvis's parents at their house, not far from the Graceland mansion, until she graduated in June. A big part of the agreement was that they would eventually marry. Priscilla talks in many interviews of how he would decide how she did her hair, her makeup, what clothes she would wear, and even how her teeth looked. He was big into fashion and always wanted them to look good and coordinate with each other. After moving to Graceland, she had always wanted to tag along with Elvis to Hollywood, but he would often make her stay in Memphis. During the filming of Viva Las Vegas, Elvis had an affair with his co-star Anne Margaret. When Priscilla heard this, she confronted him only to be told it was all rumors to promote the film and not to believe everything she reads in the press. Over the years, it was rumored that he would have many other intimate relationships with many of his leading ladies and co-stars, denying them all to Priscilla. She recalls her life at Graceland during this time as being lonely since she wasn't able to visit him. Elvis's manager didn't want fans knowing he had a steady girlfriend yet, due to the fear of losing them and record sales because they may feel they no longer had a chance with Elvis. She was eventually allowed to visit him in Hollywood, but they were kept short. She described the lifestyle as so outrageous that she's thankful that she came out of it sane. Just before Christmas in 1966, Elvis got down on one knee and proposed to Priscilla. It has been rumored that Elvis was hesitant to propose, but her father threatened Elvis, leaving him no choice. Priscilla later shut this down, stating her father just wanted her to be happy and the rumor makes her sick. Priscilla has also talked many times about how Elvis refused to partake in intercourse with her until the two were wed. Priscilla stated in an interview in Ladies' Home Journal that she and Elvis were quite happy just to live together, but at the time it wasn't nice for people to just live together. The two waited no time before tying the knot on May 1st, 1967. The pair flew from Palm Springs Springs to Las Vegas around midnight of their wedding day. Priscilla recalls them obtaining their license at about 3 a.m. and they were married in a room at the Aladdin Hotel with only 14 people in attendance. They followed up the ceremony with a quick press conference and a champagne breakfast for 100 guests downstairs. They later threw a bigger celebration at Graceland on May 29th, but they didn't want their wedding ceremony to be chaotic. Priscilla loved time after the wedding. They took a 3-week break with no staff, and she enjoyed this time where she was the one who was able to take care of Elvis rather than a maid or a staff member. Exactly 9 months after their wedding date on February 1st, 1968, they welcomed their first and only child together, Lisa Marie Presley. Life after Lisa Marie became a little more rocky for the couple. Elvis and his manager worried about how becoming a dad would possibly make him less desirable with the young female fans. Elvis also became reluctant to sleep with Priscilla after giving birth due to the fact that Elvis had never slept with a woman before who had a child. He was attracted to youth and innocence. This started a bit of a disconnect between the two. Priscilla began to take dance classes to fill her time. She found herself deeply attracted to her dance teacher, and she confesses in her book, Elvis and Me, to having a short affair with him. But she implied with regret that she came out of it realized she needed so much more out of her relationship with Elvis. Despite her affair and Elvis's relationships with his co-stars, they seemed very happy during those first few years of marriage. It however took a turn in 1968 when Elvis's career started to take off again. When Priscilla had first moved to Memphis, Elvis had been focusing on his movies. So after his TV special that year, he was constantly touring and playing in Vegas. He was reportedly seeing other women on and off while away, leaving Priscilla home alone with baby Lisa. In the early 70s, Priscilla began taking lessons from Elvis's karate instructor Mike Stone as a way to pass time and be involved in one of her husband's hobbies. Not long after, their relationship had developed into an affair. Priscilla still loved Elvis, but she knew she had a big decision to make. Due to her husband's lack of intimacy, she began to doubt herself as a woman and felt as though her physical and emotional needs were not being fulfilled. The pair separated in February 1972, and their divorce was finalized on October 9, 1973. A lot of reports state that the two divorced due to infidelity on both parts, which definitely had a hand in it, but Priscilla herself also stated that she realized she just hadn't experienced anything other than Elvis. He was her world, and she needed to see what was out there for herself. The two stayed close. They left the courthouse on the day of their divorce hand in hand. They also kept up a positive relationship while co-parenting their daughter Lisa Marie. She recalls that it was almost like they had never divorced. They would still share everything with each other and kept a close relationship. In 1973, Priscilla entered her first solo adventure by setting up a clothing boutique in LA called Biz & Beau along with her friend and stylist Olivia Biz. The shop was a success, gaining regular celebrity clients including Liza Minnelli, Barbra Streisand, Natalie Wood, and Cher. She continued with the boutique until it closed in 1976. The following year, in 1977, is when Elvis passed away. She says that even though the two were divorced, she loved Elvis and still loves him to this day. She had never felt more alone or afraid in her life after she heard the news. Elvis's father, Vernon, was one of the executors of his estate, which was held in a trust for his daughter, Lisa Marie. When he passed in 1979, Priscilla was the one who took over. Graceland, however, was costing $500,000 a year in upkeep and fees. The expenses had lowered Lisa's inheritance to only $1 million. Priscilla thought she was going to have to sell Graceland, but instead was able to turn it into a tourist attraction. It opened to the public on June 7, 1982, and in just 4 weeks after opening, the estate made back all the money it had invested. She even became the chairwoman and president of Elvis Presley Enterprises, stating she would remain in the position until Lisa Marie was 21. Priscilla was able to save Graceland and keep the money flowing. Eventually, the trust grew to over $100 million. After Elvis, Priscilla was free to venture into the career world. She'd always shown interest in acting, dancing, and modeling, but Elvis felt that a woman's place was to be home looking after her man. She was originally offered a role as one of Charlie's Angels, but she disliked the show, so she turned it down. In 1980, she made her television debut as a co-host of Those Amazing Animals. In 1983, she had her first chance to act professionally on an episode of The Fall Guy Season 2, which led her to landing a role in television film Love is Forever starring Michael Landon. In 1984, she entered her longest-running relationship since Elvis. After dating around here and there, she entered a 22-year-long relationship with Marco Garibaldi, who was a screenwriter. With him, she had her son Navarone Stone in 1978, and the pair split in 2006. After her film Love is Forever aired on television, she landed her role of Jenna Wade on the soap opera Dallas. She was the third actress to play Jenna, but played her for the longest. She stayed on the show for 5 years and left in 1988. Also in 1988 was the year she starred opposite Leslie Nielsen in The Naked Gun, from The Files of the Police Squad as Jane Spencer. She would also go on to reprise her role in the second and third movies in the series in 1991 and 1994. All three films performed well at box offices. Between the Naked Gun films, she would also appear in The Adventures of Ford Fairlane in 1990, as well as guest appearances in shows Melrose Place, Touched by an Angel, and Spin City. Priscilla also had her time on the production side of things, helping produce films Breakfast with Einstein and Finding Graceland, both in 1998. In September 2000, she was elected to the board of directors at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, or MGM. Since 2003, Presley has been the ambassador of the Dream Foundation, which is a wish-granting organization for terminally ill adults and their families. In 2015, Priscilla became the executive producer of a 14-track album titled If I Can Dream, Elvis Presley with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. She helped choose which of Elvis's tracks would be elevated and enhanced by the full orchestra. Also in 2015, she worked with U.S. Postmaster General Megan Brennan to dedicate a stamp to Elvis. On August 16, 2019, it was announced that herself, with John Eddy and Sony Pictures, were creating and producing Agent King, a Netflix animated fictional series in which Elvis would be a musician by day and a US government spy by night. So where is she now? Priscilla is still actively involved in keeping her ex-husband's legacy alive. She regularly visits Graceland, most recently celebrating the late singer's 87th birthday and promoting events at the tourist attraction. Lately, she has been in the press more than she has in a while due to the release of the new Elvis biopic, retelling the story of his life and career. Just last week, her and her family were asked to put their hands on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She has boasted about the film and how happy she is that her children and grandchildren will be able to see it. The release of the Netflix animated series Agent King still has no set release date, but a teaser was posted on June 15th to the official Elvis account, and it should be out sometime in 2022. She continues to do interviews about herself, Elvis, and the new film that has had great feedback. She continues to be involved in activism, and her son just got married back in February.
It was such an emotional, like Riley said, it just brings up such generational trauma. I mean, in a good way.
Lisa Marie Presley is a huge name in Hollywood, mostly because of her relations to being the only daughter of her late father Elvis, and her previous marriage to her deceased ex-husband and king of pop Michael Jackson. But before we get into all that, let's rewind a bit. Lisa Marie Presley was only 3 years old when she was caught red-handed by her dad, belting in front of her room mirror with a hairbrush on numerous occasions. Her obsession with grooving to 45s in her father's Graceland estate was super cute, and there's no doubt Lisa Marie's fondest memories stem from these remnants of her early life. The singer-songwriter was born in Memphis, Tennessee on February 1st. She was stationed there until her parents' separation at 4 years old. It was then that little Presley seemed to become a big girl, as she flew to Los Angeles, California to start a new life with her mother after the split. Despite her parents' breakup then, she kept up with her continuous visits between her caregivers and went back and forth between LA and Memphis during the time. But her life unfortunately came crashing down before her, as Elvis soon passed away abruptly when Lisa Marie was only 9 years old, where he suffered from a reported heart failure that tied into associations of prescription drug misuse. Eventually, our mini Presley grew into a full 5'3" young adult, where she attended the Westlake School for Girls. She dropped out of the education system in 11th grade, and the abuse of illegal hard substances soon haunted her. When she graced her 17th year of life, Lisa Marie was shipped to Scientology Celebrity Rehab underneath the Church of Scientology. Now, for those who may not already know, this practice, deemed Scientology, is dictated by none other than its leader David Miscavige, and was founded originally by science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard in 1953. This practice brands itself as religion based on the ideology of self-knowledge and spiritual fulfillment, represented through graded courses or studying and training. It's been home to Hollywood stars alike, like it once was for Lisa Marie, and resides in Riverside County, California. While attending her studies here, Lisa Marie was acquainted with rock and roll musician Danny Keogh. The two eventually tied the knot on October 3rd, 1988. They shared 2 children in total, with their first being their daughter Danielle, and their second being their late son Benjamin. Benjamin. Benjamin was said to have passed away at 27 years old in July 2020, and the cause was reportedly taking his own life. I'm sure this loss was just another one of Lisa Marie's that must have undoubtedly crushed her soul, as multiple resources labeled her as being utterly heartbroken. And if we reel back to the year 1994, Lisa Marie would go on to subject herself to a divorce with Danny after 6 long years of marriage. Following this breakup, Lisa Marie wound up in several failed relationships and out of the blue marriages as a result. Now, remember when I told you about Lisa Marie holding the title of Elvis's only daughter, and her being Michael Jackson's former wife at the start? Here's how it pertains to what we've learned about her at this point. A mere 20 days preceded and her divorce with Danny was finalized, so Lisa Marie had wed yet again. This time it was to the late singer and musical genius Michael Jackson. Despite the relationship having been fleeting, Jackson reportedly proposed to Lisa Marie via a phone call after only 4 months of their dating. Lisa Marie had filed for separation in January 1996, and in 2000, while she was engaged to another musician named John, she had been introduced to Nicolas Cage. Now, if you're following me this far, I'm sure you know where this is heading. The latter couple wed in Hawaii on August 10, 2002, but much like the others, they divorced. This time only 108 days after they first tied the knot. In 2006, on January 22nd, Lisa Marie married for the 4th and final time to date, being romantically linked to director, producer, and guitarist Michael Lockwood. The pair welcomed fraternal twins Harper and Finley on October 7, 2008. And what everyone thought would be Lisa Marie's true fairy tale love, though, turned into a nightmare when Lisa Marie and Michael Lockwood filed for divorce in 2016. This separation was dragged through the mud because although they weren't together from 2016 onward, they were still officially married until May 26, 2021. Despite this, Presley continued to forge her path in life, as she was collectively forming her music career while she was building her family. In 1992, she had her first demo, but later rejected the contract she was offered in light of her music. In what seemed like a true miracle in her downward spiraling life, Lisa Marie's first album, To Whom It May Concern, was released in April 2003 and debuted at the 5th spot on the Billboard 200's chart. It also went on to certify gold in June of the same year. Her second body of work, Now What, was released 2 years later in the same month and reached number 9 on the Billboard 200s. This time her album hit gold certification in November of 2007. Following her success, Lisa Marie recorded and released a single titled In the Ghetto, which was a nod to the likes of a child being born after the death of a father, and scored number 1 on iTunes and number 16 on the Billboard single charts separately. Lisa Marie stored all of these proceeds to a Scientology charity at the time, and ended up putting out her third album named Storm and Grace in 2012, which was produced by 12-time Grammy Award winning creator T-Bone Burnett, whose work is known through making magic with artists like Elton John, Leon Russell, and Willie Nelson. This album slated itself as marking a departure from Lisa Marie's former body of works, which I will break down a little further in a few minutes. Now, Lisa Marie seemed to be quite the busybody because in addition to her musical career, she was also serving as a co-trustee of Elvis Presley's estate alongside her mother, as well as the National Bank of Commerce. In 2014, she moved on from the Church of Scientology, which she was formerly tied down to because of her connections to the association through her mom. Overall, Lisa Marie Presley details a lot about her life on her self-appointed website, where she talks about reclaiming her roots through Storm and Grace as a musician, and loving her songs personally, but experiencing fear of hiding behind a long list of sonic layers. As a result, Lisa Marie dishes about how she felt it was much easier to bury her nose in the noise so that she didn't have to stand out in the crowd. She also informs readers that she had stripped her album down tremendously in terms of lyrics and sound, and it opened herself up for genuineness in the industry. The musical body of work has a rich golden tone and gives off that of an older, back porch, out of the blue jam session vibe, truly fitting for the late 2000s. It is interesting, as per Lisa Marie's words, that her previous albums really helped her progress through her rebellious years while launching her singer-songwriting career in 2003. She describes being upset with herself back then, but using that anger as a protective mechanism. So Lisa Marie wanted to make music for sure, but at what cost? While she was being pushed by her management team to be a pop star and partake in all these crazy things, she details not even wanting to do so in the first place. Thankfully though, Lisa Marie stuck it out and even completed a well-received tour in support of Now What. Now, here's where her retreat from the music industry came from and why. Lisa Marie relocated to the English countryside alongside her husband and her then younger twin daughters to shed herself of the people and things she felt demoralized her. She discusses getting rid of the toxic energy around her and knew she lost her motivation and passion for songwriting, detailing how her creative spark was drained. Still, Lisa Marie Marie understood deep down that she didn't want to abandon her niche, and in thinking so, she agreed to sit down with new songwriters for collaborations in the summer of 2009. She explains how there was no backhand agenda to who she partnered up with, or any further fame gained from this, just that she was in deep search to reacquaint herself with her love of music, and wanted to share that with other people who also did. From gentle ballads like Weary, which was written with Pulp member Holly, and other timeless hits such as Close to the Edge, Over Me, and Soften the Blows, the entire open and honest piece of work was created with the intent of being tender and consoling tracks that blend thoroughly in the album, aside from the fact that Lisa Marie is typically known for her tough frankness. Lisa Marie made it known that she mustered up a lot of vulnerability to create the art's vibe back then, and even impressed T-Bone Burnett enough to want to meet and work with her. Burnett describes being curious about Lisa Marie upon hearing her songs, and dished how he personally thought her father would be so proud of her when he heard the raw and soulful music. Burnett also hinted that the more he dived into Lisa Marie's music, the deeper he discovered her to be as an artist. Happy to have found her new label home, Universal Republic, both parties agreed on a release date of May 15th for Storm and Grace's drop. Lisa Marie finalized that she was excited for her listeners to connect with her music, despite being nervous about how it will be perceived, because that rush of happiness is what makes it all worth it to her. Finally, Lisa Marie put out a statement on her website which discusses her absolute love for music, and how this compels her to keep going because it's her life's drive. She goes in depth about how overjoyed she is when her career has the beautiful ability to change someone's life. As of today, Lisa Marie Presley leaves us with the latest update in her life of her and Elvis's late son's matching tattoos. In line with the 2-year anniversary of Benjamin's passing, Lisa Marie took to Instagram to upload a message with a shared photo of an intricate ink design on the same spot of both of their bodies, near the top portion of their right feet. She captioned the quick post with, "Several years ago on Mother's Day, my son and I got these matching tattoos, symbolizing that we will be connected eternally. We carefully picked it to represent our internal love and our internal bond." Despite her long social media break following the death of Benjamin in July 2020, Lisa Marie re-revealed herself to the platform in May in light of the release of Baz Luhrmann's musical biopic titled Elvis. And although Lisa Marie understandably no longer frequents her Instagram account, only providing us with brief details of her life here and there, she still manages to shine a bit of light on her never-ending love for her family, forever in her heart and memories.